Hello and welcome to PMCLounge.com. In this video, let's talk about the third project management principle. By the way, if you're into reading articles, I'd urge you to check the first link in the description out because that is where you're going to find an article on this topic over at our official website, PMCLounge.com. So if you're into reading articles, PMCLounge.com is where you need to head to and get access to all these free articles. Secondly, if you want to go over the other project management principles, then check out the second link in the description because that is where you're going to find a playlist of all the principles that we have explained in the videos, right? So let's talk about the third principle, which is all about effective stakeholder engagement. What does the principle actually say? It is pretty simple. It says effectively engage with stakeholders. Now, none of these principles, these project management principles, none of these are rocket science, right? Principles basically represent stuff that you should anyways be aware of as a project manager. So none of these are out of the world concept as such. See how simple it is. Effectively engage with stakeholders. Let's talk more about what exactly stakeholders are and how you can actually effectively engage them. So first of all, let's define a stakeholder. A stakeholder is someone who may affect your project, be affected by your project, or perceive themselves to be affected by the project. So this may mean, groups, this may mean individuals, this may mean organizations, this may mean government, different countries. Anyone can actually be a stakeholder of your project. And when we say project, we don't just mean the entire project. This also includes some of the decisions that you need to take as part of this project, some of the activities that you need to perform as part of this project, right? So now I hope you can understand the scale of the situation here, how big your stakeholders can actually be in terms of the numbers. Now, secondly, stakeholders can directly or indirectly influence the project in a positive or negative way. So stakeholders can influence your project positively or negatively. Now, influencing the project, this might mean, so when we say the word project here, this might mean the project's performance as well. Some stakeholder who is a negative stakeholder can significantly slow your project down, right? That is a possibility. A stakeholder who is a positive stakeholder, right? And they can have a positive impact or a positive influence on your project. They can significantly speed up your project or they can help you save cost. So project here does not mean the entire project. It can mean the project performance. It can also mean the overall outcome of the project. Now, a quick reminder here, if you like our work, consider contributing by going over to pmclounge.com/contribute. You can also join us on YouTube or use our thanks button. Let's move on. Let's talk about the keyword here in principle 3. The keyword here is not stakeholders. You already know what stakeholder is, right? And you already know how many stakeholders you can actually have on your project. But the keyword of this principle is actually engagement. This is where the real deal is. Everyone can, identify who their stakeholders are, but not everyone can effectively engage them. So let's talk about stakeholder engagement here. Project teams serve stakeholders by engaging with them and thus proactively ensuring value delivery. All projects deliver some sort of value. Now, you are proactively ensuring that your value gets delivered by engaging with the stakeholders. This is very, very important. Now, by definition, everyone is a stakeholder, anyways. So, the way you are engaging with everyone becomes very, very important. The timing also becomes important. Finally, not engaging with stakeholders may result in missed opportunities and creating threats. This is why engagement is the keyword. This is why I mentioned that everyone can identify stakeholders of the project, but not everyone can effectively engage your stakeholders, right? Not everyone can effectively engage their stakeholders in a way that it benefits the project. That is precisely what we are going to learn as part of this principle. So let's take an example here. Let's say you bought a new apartment in some society and you need to get the interiors of that apartment done. Now, your neighbor is a stakeholder here because they might be affected by the drilling noise or whatever noise that the workers there are going to make. So, you need to ensure you engage with them and ask them about any preferences they may have, any apartment rules that you should follow, right? So, that is something that you are doing proactively engaging with your neighbors so that you do not impact them much, because they are definitely going to be affected by the interiors of your home, right? So they will definitely be affected here. They are definitely a stakeholder here. Now, if you engage with your neighbor, there is a chance that you get an opportunity to gain their insights and gain their tips that they might share based on their experience, because they've been living in that apartment for however long, right? So you can actually gain from their experience and insights. But at the same time, if you don't engage with them, you don't get the tips. Plus, you get an angry neighbor. And who would want an angry neighbor? So, definitely engage with your project stakeholders. I just gave you an example. Let's move on. Let's get into the thick of the things. First of all, you need to understand how stakeholders can affect the multiple aspects of a project. First is scope. More precisely, the requirements by requesting addition or removal. This is how your project can be affected by a stakeholder based on the scope, based on the requirements essentially. Schedule. They can slow down, they can accelerate, or even stop the project activities. Cost. Adding requirements or slowing down the activities of the project will most likely result in cost increases or require additional resources. So, I hope you are understanding how important it is to engage with your stakeholders, to be proactive in this area so that none of these are impacted. Your scope, schedule, cost. In fact, if you engage with your stakeholders correctly, it is likely that you are going to benefit in these areas. And there's more actually. Project team, restricting or enabling access to team resources or people with skills, knowledge, and experience. If another project manager wants to get their project done before you, and if they have a lot of influence in your organization, they may restrict access to some of the team resources with skills, knowledge, and experience, right? And you might not be able to have those people work on your project. So that is a possibility. Plans, adding more information to existing plans or requesting changes to agreed activities. Pretty straightforward. Outcomes, enabling or blocking the required work. Culture, establishing or influencing the level and character of engagement that you do. Benefits realization, generating and identifying long term goals. Now, benefits realization can actually be a long term job, and it may involve multiple projects. So, that is why we are talking about long term goals here, right? Benefits realization is not just, one project delivery and you're done, you've realized the benefits. It is possible that multiple projects are involved, and that is why you have to think long term, and that is where stakeholders can step in. They may identify what the long term goals are, and if they are negative stakeholders, they may identify some incorrect long term goals for you, which can change the course of your project, right, or the series of projects. Risk, defining risk thresholds of the project as well as participating in the subsequent risk management activities. If you identify people, if you identify stakeholders that have good influence, that are positive towards your project, right? They can help you identify risk, and not just that, they can help you mitigate those risks as well. Quality, identifying and requiring quality requirements. Success, defining success factors and participating in the evaluation of project success. So I hope you realize how big of an impact stakeholders have on any project. If you are able to identify stakeholders, if you are able to engage with them, they can actually affect so many different areas of your project. And it is not necessary that all of this is going to be negative, right? all of this can be positive as well. It totally depends on how you engage with stakeholders, what their influence and motives are. Let's move on and let's talk about the dynamic nature of stakeholders. This is very important to understand because stakeholders may change during the project life cycle. So it is possible that someone who was a stakeholder 3 months ago, 2 months ago, is not a stakeholder anymore. It is likely that they were stakeholder of just one phase of the project, of just one part of the project, right? So that is something which is very, very important to identify. Secondly, stakeholders' interest, influence, or impact can also evolve over time. If we are talking about, let's say, a quality manager might not be so much interested in the requirements, might not be so much interested in the development work that is going on, but his or her influence is going to skyrocket when the project enters the quality phase. So this is again very, very important to understand that stakeholders may change during the course of your project, and their interest, influence, or impact can also evolve over time. Finally, effective and proactive engagement by the project team by identifying and analyzing stakeholders becomes the key. Also, project team, right? We mentioned the word project team here because this is not something that the project manager can alone do. Project team is also a stakeholder themselves. This is important, but they should consider the interest and opinions of other stakeholders. So I hope you understand how this is not necessarily just a project manager job, right? This is the job of the entire project team. Project team, it can be seen as a group of stakeholders themselves. They are encouraged to identify, analyze, and engage with others throughout the life of the project. Now, here's the bottom line that I would like to give you. In terms of your real life projects, what are you supposed to do? Find out who are the high influence stakeholders, right? Who are the high ticket stakeholders that you have on your project? And do they have positive or negative outlook towards your project? What are their views? Are they positive or negative? If there are people or stakeholders who have very high influence and they have negative views on your project, then that is something that you need to be aware of. You need to understand their interests, you need to understand their concerns, and you need to ensure that what they stand to gain if the project becomes successful, right? So you need to ensure that you communicate this to those people. So on real life projects, I'd say understand who are the high ticket stakeholders and understand if they have a positive or a negative view on your project. Let's talk about some of the key factors of stakeholder engagement. So how do you engage with your stakeholders, right? So effective engagement, it involves understanding stakeholders preference for communication, and it actually goes beyond mere information exchange. It also involves, let's say, awareness. It also involves understanding perspectives of different stakeholders, and it also involves collaborative problem solving. So building and maintaining relationships become very, very important. You are going to achieve this through two-way communication, through collaboration, and this is where the second point also pops up: knowledge sharing. You need to have knowledge sharing activities with your stakeholders. Remember what I just said about high ticket stakeholders with negative views. You need to let them know, you need to share the knowledge and let them know that if this project becomes successful, they also stand to gain something out of it. And finally, interpersonal skills. This can include initiative, your own integrity, the team's integrity, collaboration, respect, empathy, confidence. These are all considered crucial for successful engagement of stakeholders. One last slide before I let you go, and that is all about continuous process. Engaging with stakeholders, right? The stakeholder engagement, it is portrayed as a continuous process. So this is not something that you do a kickoff meeting with all of them and then you forget them, right? So you have to be continuously engaged with the stakeholders throughout the life of your project. This can include information collection, this can include evaluation, this can include adaptation to changing circumstances. Everything will happen only if you carry this process out as a continuous process rather than a one and done kind of thing, right? Active engagement, it minimizes negative impacts and maximizes positive outcomes, enables opportunities for stronger project performance and increased stakeholder satisfaction. So continuous engagement is not only a means to minimize negative impacts. Of course, it is a big part, because that's what we talked about in point number 2, but it is also going to maximize the positive outcomes and enhance the overall project performance and satisfaction, right? So you as a project manager, you are dealing with two circles: the inner circle, which is your project team, and then the larger circle, which contains all these different stakeholders. Now, if in this large circle you have a lot of negative stakeholders, right? Stakeholders that have negative views on your project, it is possible that the people in your inner circle, your project team, they also get affected by it. And that is why, in order to ensure that their performance and their satisfaction is not impacted, you need to reach out to these negative stakeholders and explain to them the positive aspects of your project. Be proactive in engaging with them, making sure that they convert from a negative stakeholder to a positive stakeholder for sure. So that is something which is very, very important, because we are talking about the performance of your project team here as well. So I hope you realize how important engaging with stakeholder really is. And that's pretty much all that we had in this video. Like, share, subscribe. If you like our work, consider contributing by using the thanks button, by joining us on YouTube, or by heading over to pmclounge.com/contribute. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.